Hi, everybody. This is Paul Garrard. I'm a student loan consultant working with the American Dental Education Association, ADEA. This recorded module is on financing your dental hygiene education. In this module, we're going to cover a number of items, including looking at the cost of attendance, some cost considerations. We'll talk about smart budgeting, responsible borrowing, and how both of those can lead to responsible repayment after you finish your dental hygiene education. We'll take a brief look at your student loan portfolio, what kind of student loans you may be borrowing to help pay for your dental hygiene education. Then we'll look at some action items and resources as we wrap up this module. Now we start out with some cost considerations. Your financial aid office can provide you an estimated cost of attendance, also called your financial aid budget. And this is a listing of what they anticipate it will cost you during 1 year of attendance for your dental hygiene education. This will include things such as tuition and fees, an allowance for room and board and living expenses, transportation expenses, personal expenses, etc. Once again, you can get that from your financial aid office. You may be able to pull that down from their website at your dental hygiene school. We would encourage you to take a look at those items listed in the cost of attendance and control what you can control within a realistic budget. You should know what your tuition and fees are. Those are items that you don't have control over, but focus on things such as your living expenses, personal expenses, etc. Please remember that consumer debt is not part of the cost of attendance, so you cannot get financial aid to cover any consumer debts that you're still paying on when you enter your dental hygiene program. We would encourage you to always get rid of consumer debt before you start your degree program. Always seek free money first. Talk with your financial aid office about grants and scholarships that may be available through their office and about any kind of application deadlines. Now, some additional cost considerations. After you've spoken with your financial aid office about the possibility of grants and scholarships, you may still need to borrow money for your dental hygiene education. We'd encourage you to remember that you don't have to borrow up to the full cost of attendance or your financial aid budget each year. If you don't need that much money, don't borrow that much money. Never borrow more than you really need. And perhaps it sounds a little ridiculous to say plan to pay back what you borrow, but don't borrow needlessly money you don't really need under the assumption that the debt will be forgiven later with a federal forgiveness program. If you're considering a private loan in lieu of or in addition to a federal loan, always talk with your financial aid officer first, and we'd encourage you to take a look at the module on federal loans versus private loans on the ADEA Go Dental site under the Money Matters heading. Now, there are two approaches to take when you're borrowing money. First of all, you can borrow up to the full cost of attendance or your financial aid budget each year, and then return funds later if you find that you don't need them. Sometimes students who are going to school in a new city or a new town they're not familiar with and they're not sure how much it's going to cost each month, they'll go ahead and borrow the full amount allowed in the financial aid budget or cost of attendance, and then they'll return funds later if they really just don't need the funds. If this is the approach you take and you don't need some funds, be sure you return them within the first 120 days and work carefully with your financial aid office and let them return the funds, because if you do it within the first 120 days, you'll pay no interest and no loan fees on the amount that you return. The second approach is to actually start out borrowing under the cost of attendance or financial aid budget and increase the borrowing later during the year. Be sure you give your financial aid office enough time to process the increase. And one advantage of doing this is it delays interest accrual on unsubsidized loans, because interest accrues on unsubsidized loans from the time of disbursement. Now, after looking at two approaches to borrowing on the previous slide, remember that smart budgeting and responsible borrowing can lead to responsible repayment. If you make poor budgeting choices during school, you may end up in a repayment plan after graduation that you really don't want. Perhaps you want to be aggressive in repayment after graduation, but you end up in an extended repayment plan because you simply borrowed money during school that you didn't need. Remember that borrowing under budget, as we mentioned on the previous slide, this puts you in a position where you can borrow more later, up to the cost of attendance if needed, and that will help reduce or delay the interest accrual on unsubsidized loans. And certainly, if you meet all financial aid office deadlines, that will mean that you'll have funds available when you really need them. Now let's take a quick look at your student loan portfolio. This is a listing of some of the loans you may need to borrow to help pay for your dental hygiene education. First is a direct subsidized and direct unsubsidized loans. These are also referred to as Stafford loans. The subsidized loans, which are interest-free during school and the 6-month grace period that follows school, those are only available for undergraduate programs. So if you are in a master's dental hygiene program, the only Stafford loan that's available is the direct unsubsidized loan. Direct Plus is available for graduate and professional students. There is a version of this loan available for parents of undergraduates. So if you're in an undergraduate dental hygiene program, your parents may be able to take out a plus loan if you need additional help. But if you are a graduate student in a master's program, you can borrow Grad Plus. Campus-based loans are likely not going to be available to you. These are loans made directly by the school, but check with the financial aid office. And we've already mentioned private loans. We would encourage you again to take a look at the recorded module on the Go Dental site under Money Matters that talks about the differences between federal and private loans. By and large, most of you will be borrowing direct subsidized and direct unsubsidized loans and perhaps Direct Plus. Now, as we mentioned on the previous slide, direct subsidized loans are not available for graduate students. You have to be an undergraduate student in order to qualify for a subsidized loan. The annual amounts vary by your year in the program, and these loans carry a fixed interest rate. The rate changes on new loans dispersed on or after July 1 of any given year. Once the rate is assigned, it is fixed for the life of the loan. But once again, the rate changes on new loans every July 1. These are interest-free during school and the 6-month grace period, and these loans have multiple repayment options because they are federal loans. They are eligible for forgiveness, and they are also eligible for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, direct unsubsidized loans are available for both undergraduate and graduate students, and once again, just like the subsidized loans, the annual amounts vary by the year in the program. Also similar to subsidized loans, they have a fixed interest rate. The rate is set every July 1 on new loans, and then it is fixed for the life of the loan. Interest, though, starts accruing or building up at disbursement. No one is paying the interest for you. So these are not interest-free to a borrower. You are responsible for all the interest that accrues on these loans. You don't have to pay it in school, but you will have to pay it eventually. These loans also carry a 6-month grace period, and since they're federal loans, they have multiple repayment provisions and options available on them. They are also eligible for forgiveness, and they're eligible for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, assuming the eligibility requirements for PSLF are met. Now, Direct Plus loans, also called Grad Plus, are only available for graduate students. There is a version of the Plus loan available for parents of undergraduates, but the Grad Plus is only available for graduate students. The borrowing limit is the cost of attendance or financial aid budget minus other aid, including the direct unsubsidized loan. Remember, graduate students cannot get the subsidized direct loan, only unsubsidized. So with Grad Plus, you can borrow up to cost of attendance minus other aid, including the direct unsubsidized loan. These loans carry a fixed interest rate. The rate is always 1 full point higher than the direct unsubsidized rate. The rates change every July 1 on new loans. These loans don't have a 6-month grace period, but they have something that works in a similar manner. It's called a 6-month post-enrollment deferment period. So if you have a Grad Plus loan, it would come due 6 months after you graduate or drop below half-time status. These are federal loans, so there are multiple repayment provisions, and these are eligible for forgiveness and eligible for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, assuming eligibility requirements are met for PSLF. Now we close up this module on financing a dental education with some action items. Always important to establish a relationship with your financial aid office. And as we mentioned earlier, get a realistic budget and stick to it. Don't borrow more money than you need. Never borrow up to the full cost of attendance if you really don't need that much money. Be sure you pay down consumer debt before you start your dental hygiene program. Consumer debt cannot be part of your financial aid budget. Be sure prior loans that you had before you got into your dental hygiene program are in good standing when you matriculate. And another reason to stay in contact with your financial aid office is to keep abreast of any kind of changes that may impact your borrowing and repayment options. Now, this is a list of some resources that may help you. Look at adia.org and look for what we call the red ribbon, and you'll see something called Information for Current Students and Residents. If you click on that, you'll see financial resources for students, and there's a lot of information available and resources available for dental hygiene students there. The AAMC ADIA Dental Loan Organizer and Calculator is available directly at adia.org/DLOC. It is absolutely free for 7 years. We think you'll find it very helpful in terms of tracking your student loans throughout your dental hygiene program. Always check with your loan servicer. Your federal loans are listed there, and also check federal student aid at studentaid.gov. We hope this information has been helpful to you as you look at ways to finance your dental hygiene education. Best wishes for every success in your dental hygiene program.